I watched pretty much every single one of Caitlin's games early on because I am a fan. I do like good basketball. And of course, I wanted to see how she would do. Coming out of college and going into the WNBA, we as WNBA players were having basketball conversations, and everybody just took it to another place where we were attacking them as people.
In the most surprising way possible, Sue Bird has revealed the WNBA's covert strategy to unseat Caitlin Clark from the beginning. And no, this wasn't a case of a terrible call going wrong. This was a fully orchestrated, prearranged circus. Clark didn't have to put up with this mess, the technical fouls, the racist overtones, the obvious targeting. It was a tactic devised by those who couldn't stand her taking center stage. I simply don't. And as you are aware, we have already discussed this, such as the fan, I can't recall the specific incident, where the fan nearly got disqualified during the Connecticut Sun game, but it went hard at Caitlin in either game 1 or 2. We never seem to grasp the fact that none of this is acceptable. On the side of the guys, we never accept this. Apparently, the WNBA's new playbook is drama and envy. So Kathy Engelbart and her team of referees understood precisely what they were doing. You can throw her under the bus for a little more controversy in ticket sales, so why support a budding star? Thanks to Sue, the unclean laundry has been removed, but it doesn't look good. What makes it acceptable in our league? Why is mainstream sports welcome? And don't worry, Sue didn't reveal the WNBA because she felt a great deal of pity for Caitlin Clark. Don't fool ourselves. It was a mistake, a lovely, inadvertent one. Who's complaining, though? Everything now makes sense, especially in light of Bird's recent overt remarks that, let's be honest, has done nothing but disparage Caitlin Clark's record-breaking rookie season. We finally have the juicy details we always felt were simmering beneath the surface. You know, the one when she had stats that most players could never have imagined, and she practically set the league on fire? We anticipated it. This was expected, not only the commissioner's remarks from a few weeks ago, in which she essentially suggested that racial friction is beneficial for business by bringing up Magic and Bird. However, Sue chose to dismiss that as inconsequential on her podcast. She referred to the league's accomplishments as a team effort. It's true that teamwork helps the idea come true, but please don't act as though Clark didn't introduce the WNBA to a whole new audience on his own. Increased ratings on television, greater numbers of attendees. Ladies and gentlemen, a league does not provide that. It comes from the league's players, and since she was the most well-liked, she might have improved your bottom line. You should have recognized this right away and taken full advantage of it. The atmosphere quickly caught on with critics as well. Was Bird merely being sentimental, or was she subtly criticizing Clark? Because it sounded like an attempt to dampen the spirits of someone who has been effortlessly stealing the show and setting records one after another. It's not beneficial for me. Additionally, there is a nagging suspicion that this may not just some harmless remarks. Is it uneasiness or jealousy? Perhaps it's something a little more intimate, or perhaps it's just a veteran showing tough love. Ultimately, Clark's ascent hasn't been quiet. Rather, it's been, let's face it, for someone who's been around as long as Bird, it might hurt a little to see a rookie steal all the spotlight. She's accomplished in a year what other players never come close to in 10. This is where things get very hot, though. Bird's remarks are only one aspect of the larger issue. Another is if the WNBA's leadership was covertly trying to prevent Clark from becoming very prominent. Perhaps a conspiracy theory, but let's discuss, for example, during practice, Caitlin Clark, a once-in-a-generation rookie, received the news that she had won Rookie of the Year via phone call. Of course, not all, there are. They are human. And when it comes to technology, basketball is a little more complicated than tennis, for example, in terms of officiating technology. As a result, we are examining numerous dimensions. Just before a playoff game in Connecticut, no hoopla, no celebration, simply a phone call saying, oh, hey, congrats, as if to inform her that her dry cleaning was done. We don't want to make a big deal out of you if it doesn't shout. I'm not sure what works. The officiating is another factor. I received a technical for essentially. He told me it was disrespectful to the game of basketball since I was upset with myself for missing the three and then hitting the backboard. The officiating, recall the time Clark missed a shot and in fury struck the backboard lightly, earning him a technical foul. In fact, the referee deemed it insulting to the game. Really? Veteran players like Diana Taurasi, meanwhile, have performed poorly and hardly received a sideline glance from the referees. The double standard is so obvious that it might be illuminated by neon lights. They seem to have one set of rules for Clark and another for the rest of them. We WNBA players were having basketball talks when we first entered the league after graduating from college, and everyone took it to another level where we were disparaging them personally. The signs continue to accumulate and present a picture that is not only concerning. It enrages me. Was the WNBA attempting to control Clark because they were worried that her quick ascent would overshadow their well-constructed story of group development? If such is the case, the choice is both perplexing and counterproductive. The league is not in danger from Clark. Its greatest asset is her. She is attracting new fans, raising TV ratings, and increasing ticket sales, all of which are much needed by the league. However, it appears that they are cautious, perhaps afraid, to allow her to shine too brightly rather than embracing her. And that's where the jealousy and sympathy reside once more. But here's the really bad part. There is more to Caitlin Clark than just the league. The current wave of excitement the league is experiencing would not have occurred. Therefore, the leadership is hurting themselves, even if they may believe they are defending the brand. The brand is the players. There would be no league, no audience, and no future without them. The subdued Rookie of the Year announcement, the dubious officiating, and Sue Bird's condescending remarks all combine to convey a message that is both obvious and annoying. Caitlin, slow down. Avoid upsetting anyone. However, this is the reality they must confront. Caitlin Clark does more than just upset people. The boat is her. Whether they like it or not, she is taking the league to new heights. They will ultimately be the ones to sink if they are unable to accept it. I would like to reset one thing that we wish to start over. And it's the words that are spoken in front of supporters, Caitlin lovers, Fever fans, and new fans. In fact, that must be removed. That must be removed. I can see why it has been used occasionally. When you're asked a question during an interview, it's rather simple to respond, oh, the Fever fan base. Yes, by that, what do you mean? That must be removed. These new fans, oh, since that's not the Fever fans, it must be removed. Caitlin fans aren't involved. Kathy Engelbart, the commissioner of the WNBA, has a knack for stirring things up and not in a positive way. At family get-togethers, her leadership style is akin to that uncomfortable relative who always says something embarrassing. An example, she positioned Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese as the next great thing in basketball rivalries, which is the most obvious and terrible illustration of her fixation with rivalries as the league's golden ticket to relevance. Imagine Larry Bird vs. Magic Johnson, but make it needlessly racial. And you get a lot of attention when you have that. Apathy is no longer present. Everyone is concerned. If you remember that Bird Magic moment from 1979 when those two rookies arrived from a fierce college rivalry, it is somewhat reminiscent of that moment. Yes, in an interview with CNBC Power Lunch. The fact that Clark is white and Reese is black, as Engelbart brazenly noted, makes sports exciting, doesn't it? She struck the wrong chord if nostalgia was her intention. Instead, she faced a barrage of criticism for using racial dynamics as a marketing ploy. Let's dissect this. Engelbart's attempt to generate enthusiasm blew out instead of merely failing. She was quickly criticized by fans and commentators for being tone deaf, saying that rather than praising the talents of two exceptionally gifted players, she reduced them to their skin colors. The worst part is still to come. Reese and Clark have both been the targets of repulsive racist taunts at games and online. One black, one white. Thus, we have that instance with these two. However, I do know that competition is necessary in sports. People watch because of that. They want to watch rivals play games of consequence. They don't want people to be kind to each other. It's a balance, but corporate partners are supporting these guys far more now than they were 5 years ago, at least in terms of marketing dollars. Was that anything Engelbart considered addressing? Obviously not, rather. She worsened the situation for both players by essentially throwing gasoline on the fire. Because utilizing racial conflict as a selling point is the epitome of progressive leadership, isn't it? The criticism poured in more quickly than a three-pointer from Clark. Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe were blunt in their podcast, a touch more. Rapinoe attacked Engelbart, saying she put gaudy marketing ahead of player safety and mental health. Rapinoe has summarized what everyone was already thinking when she said basically she implied that racial tension is good for business. Bird also weighed in, pointing out that the administration seemed more focused on making headlines than addressing pressing problems such as the harsh conditions that athletes deal with on a daily basis. The kind of things that really count, you know. From the WNBA's point of view, the league office and Kathy's position in particular are essentially to safeguard and guide the league from a business standpoint, as well as from a player welfare, health and safety, growth, and investment standpoint. and I believe she has failed at this point. Not to be overlooked are Engelbart's best pieces of useless counsel. She came up with the wonderful idea to advise players to avoid social media when they were confronted with hate speech and toxic discourse. Brilliant, huh? Because it's always so effective to ignore the issue. It's such an outdated move that it may be used as a meme. Racism and misogyny are everyday experiences for players. In essence, Engelbart's answer is, have you tried logging off when I left college? I wasn't as well liked, scrutinized, or anything. No one has. Caitlin is unique. There is no question about that. Her racialized marketing errors are just one aspect of the problems. Engelbart's overall leadership approach has come under fire for prioritizing appearances over content. In a marketing conference, her fixation on rivalries can seem like a smart concept, but in practice, it simplifies complicated athletes into cliché stories. And the harm is exacerbated when those tales rely heavily on race. Rather than showcasing Clark and Reese as leaders for the league's future, Engelbart has made them into divisive figures who divert attention from their skill and focus on needless controversy. Caitlin is still making an impression and will continue to break records for the foreseeable future. It will simply continue to break records. The fact that this strategy is escalating fan fights isn't helping either. Sue Bird's remarks regarding toxic Caitlin fans, in which she claimed that the new followers were at odds with the league's established community, added gasoline to the fire. Bird's comments came out as condescending rather than celebratory of the WNBA's increasing popularity, which drove away rather than brought fans together. Critics have noted how this narrative of fan toxicity just serves to widen gaps and transform what ought to be a festive occasion into yet another source of conflict. During a practice before a playoff game in Connecticut, they made the decision to call her to inform her that she had won Rookie of the Year. This cannot be made up. Ironically, the WNBA has long positioned itself as a progressive league that values player voices, diversity, and inclusiveness. However, Engelbart's strategies are causing more damage to that reputation than the league can repair. She's endangering years of progress and fostering a climate that is both detrimental and unhelpful by giving in to racial narratives. Both players and fans are wondering if the league's leadership truly embodies its purported ideals. The bottom line? Engelbart's obsession with rivalries and trivial drama is more than just poor public relations. The WNBA's values are being betrayed. Furthermore, this so-called leadership may lead the league down a path from which it may never return if she doesn't return her attention to what truly matters: protecting players, promoting unity, and recognizing talent.